Hi everyone, welcome to another Language Corner video. As always, this is a much shorter video. It's a vocabulary video. It's a video where I clarify, where I teach you vocabulary that appeared in a short clip in the main show about football that I do every Monday here on Teachers Danek YouTube channel, which is called Learn English with Football. This is where I invite several guests to talk about the recent or the latest game week in the Premier League. So this time it was game week 9. And this short clip is from the part where we talked about the North London derby, the Arsenal versus Tottenham Hotspur derby, which obviously only one team was able to win. And who else could it be than Arsenal? I mean, North London is red. What else can I say? And I'm gonna leave it like this, I think, for the rest of the video. But I'm here to teach you or to clarify some language. So let's get cracking. But before we do that, I am gonna remind you that first you are going to watch the actual clip, and I recommend watching it in full length. It's really important that any vocabulary that you learn, any English vocabulary that you learn, that you first encounter it in context. Remember, your brain is way more likely to actually remember that vocabulary when you first hear it from context, because you will also be able to work it out. You will also be able to understand the nuances from context, rather than if someone gives you a list of vocabulary and then explains what that vocabulary means. But anyway, I digress. Let's get on with this show. So here is the short clip from the Learn English with Football video.
Yeah, I think Arsenal are real title contenders, and
Definitely.
they have been for a few weeks.
Wow.
And I think and
I will take it. I'll take it from a Liverpool fan all day long.
There's only Gabriel who's got mistakes in him, I think.
Yes, but at the same time, he's able to score goals as well. Like, he's a goal threat.
Yeah, and as Henry said,
you know,
he's a different type of centre half. Yeah,
you're right, but yeah,
I think Odegaard a little bit as well. That's why I'm a bit surprised that he's captain. I know he's a quality footballer on the ball, but the last 3 times he's played Liverpool, he hasn't showed up at all. I thought.
He stands up in the changing room, though, mate. That's the thing.
He was good at the beginning of the season. I think he had a small injury now, right? Something like that, Henry.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean he's been away on international duty, and he's always a bit off when he comes back from playing for Norway. I don't know what it is.
Didn't he miss one game before that though? I think he missed one game or something.
Yeah, he got a knock, didn't he?
He had a knock. Yeah.
I think his physicality is a great player on the ball, but sometimes to be in that midfield, sometimes his physicality is not there. But when he's got Partey and
exactly
the other guy Xhaka alongside him, yeah,
he'll be
that's
fine.
The thing as well with Odegaard. Sometimes it seems like he has games when he's on and then games when he kind of disappears. And this was kind of one of those games when he disappears. But then on the other hand, can you really say it was a big problem if Arsenal win 3-1? Presumably he was doing things which allowed other people to play, or he was taking people away so other people had space. I think.
Arsenal players know where every other player is on the pitch.
Yeah.
They know where.
That's exactly what Odegaard was doing. He was playing off the ball. That's what
he was playing on the edge of the game, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And if someone like Conte, for example, decides that Odegaard is the threat and tells his players to concentrate on him, then people like Partey and Xhaka have the room to have a great game themselves, which happened.
Yeah, I think Arsenal are real title contenders, and they have definitely been for a few weeks. Yeah, this is, by the way, true. To be a title contender, so the word contender. A contender is someone who competes in order to win. Yeah, a title contender is someone who competes in order to win the title. So obviously we have a lot of teams in the Premier League, but not every single team is a title contender. Yeah. Title contenders are usually the top teams. So Manchester City for sure, Liverpool, Manchester United, Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal. I'm probably missing one. But these are title contenders. Okay. Now, to contend is a very useful verb, and it basically means to compete in order to win something. Yeah. Okay. So let me know in the comments actually if I have forgotten about a title contender, or who is your title contender for this season, or is it a foregone conclusion? Has it already been won by Manchester City because they have, let's be honest, Haaland? Okay, tell me in the comments. There's only Gabriel who has mistakes in him. That's a really interesting phrase, and I've noticed this phrase being used by football pundits or football fans. If you say that someone has mistakes in him, that means that that player has a vulnerability, that player has a weakness, that player is capable of making mistakes. Yeah. If a player doesn't have mistakes in him, then it's the kind of player that is pretty much flawless, right? I would argue that every player has mistakes in him, but obviously some players more than others. I wonder what the opposite of this could be. Possibly, if you say that someone doesn't put a foot wrong, that could be the opposite. Anyway, can you name a player who you think doesn't? No, actually, let's do it the other way around. Can you name a player that does have mistakes in him? So Paul thinks it's Gabriel from Arsenal. Possibly, but can you name someone else? Can you name a footballer that is quite well known, that is quite hyped, that is, quite popular, and that is doing really well, but you still think that this player has mistakes in him? Tell me in the comments. So here Paul is talking about the Norwegian international Odegaard, and he says that the last time he played, he hasn't showed up. So if somebody doesn't show up, it means that the player doesn't perform to the best of their ability. That means that the player, he plays in that game, but if it doesn't show up, sometimes we say turn up. It means the performance is just worse than expected. The performance doesn't live up to the expectations. Okay, so do you think that there is a player in the Premier League who hasn't been showing up lately in the latest Premier League matches? Let me know in the comments. Okay, so here I reminded everyone that Odegaard has had actually a little injury, and Henry responded to that by saying, yeah, he has been away on international duty. So if you are away on international duty, that basically means that you are playing for your international team. So in this case, Odegaard is from Norway. So he played for Norway, I believe, in the Nations League. Yeah. So the word duty, it's like if you have to do something, it's usually used if you sort of like serve the country for a certain purpose. If there could be something like military duty, I suppose. And sometimes it's used to talk about a certain type of job. In this case, an international duty. Yeah, because it's not his first job, right? His first job, he's employed by Arsenal. That they're the team who pays him the wages, but also he is called up by the international manager. So in this case, I don't know actually what the manager's name is. If you know the name of the Norwegian manager, tell me in the comments. And yeah, that's it. That's the question. I thought I would ask you something else, but let's just roll with it. Sometimes that's the thing with Xhaka. Sometimes he has games when he's on and games where he kind of disappears. So it's interesting to say when some player disappears, it doesn't actually mean that the player is invisible, or that the player is nowhere to be seen. Like, imagine if a player disappears and he's supposed to play, and like nobody can find that player. That's not what it means. If a player disappears, here it's used as a metaphor. It actually means that the player is sort of invisible metaphorically. So he is there actually on the pitch. You can see him. The cameras are there. Everyone can see the player, but the player doesn't perform very well. The player is invisible, doesn't touch the ball enough, is not involved in the gameplay. So we say that the player is invisible. there are players, yeah, who tends to be invisible, players who often disappear, but then they produce miracles. They then score a lot of goals. I think you could say that Haaland is a little bit like that. Do you agree with me? Do you agree that Haaland sometimes disappears, but then produces magic out of nothing? Let me know in the comments if you think Haaland is a player like that, or if you can think of anyone else who tends to disappear, but then just like that scores wonderful goals. It could be part of the strategy, right? If you disappear, like nobody expects you to score, people think nothing can happen. What could possibly go wrong? This player isn't even here, but then then they score a goal or make a key pass or something like that. Okay, guys, get involved in the comments. Why am I always telling you this, by the way? Why do I keep telling you leave comments? Well, that's because I want to give you an opportunity to practice. People don't do that enough. If you want to improve English, it's not enough to just listen and read. Everybody does that. You need to be a little bit active. You need to speak to people. You need to write comments. If you write comments, you're practicing your writing. You're also practicing the vocabulary that I'm teaching you here. So it is the best thing you can do to improve your English. So get on with it. And this was one of the games when he disappears. But on the other hand, can you say that this was a problem? If you use the phrase "on the other hand," it's a very useful transitional phrase. It's a phrase where you want to make a point, where you are presenting a point or argument, and it is in contrast of what you said before. So here Henry is saying that yes, he disappeared in that game. On the other hand, can you say that it was a big problem? So the phrase "on the other hand" is like an introductory phrase where you present a contrasting opinion, a contrasting view, where you follow that phrase with a contrasting sentence. Yeah, he disappeared, but on the other hand, can you say that this was a problem? It's almost like saying "but." Yeah, but if you want to sound a little bit better occasionally, it is useful to say "on the other hand." Can you actually write a sentence, follow it by "on the other hand," and then write another sentence which is in contrast with the previous sentence? Please do that in the comments again. Presumably, he was doing things which allowed other people to play. So again, we are talking about Granit Xhaka. Presumably, it's a very interesting adverb. And again, you kind of use it at the beginning of making a point if you want to make your point sound less direct. Yeah. Presumably, it comes from the verb to presume. It's like to suppose, to argue. So you could, instead of presumably, you could say supposedly or arguably. And it's just like, instead of saying that he was doing that, which sounds too direct, he would say presumably he was doing that. Yeah. So you sort of like take away the responsibility from yourself a little bit by saying this is presumably. It's a very useful word which I would also use in academic English. So if you want to make a point and you don't want to make it sound too direct, it's like what we call hedging. It's like your insurance that if what you are saying isn't true, or if someone disproves it, at least you said presumably, right? So you're safe. Okay. Would you be able to use the word presumably followed by a statement, something to do with the Premier League? Write it in the comments, please. So if someone like Conte, obviously the Tottenham manager, decides that Odegaard is the threat, then players like Xhaka and others have room to play. So to have room is it basically means to have space. Yeah, if you have room to play, you have space to play. It means you're not marked, you're not closed down, you're not challenged by the opposition players too much. You're not being defended too closely. Yeah, so if you have room to play, you have basically time and space to express yourself, and that is very useful. And that can be quite dangerous if the player has quality. So the word room obviously doesn't always mean just, a room in the house. It also means space. Note that it is an uncountable noun, so we don't say a room, but we just say room without a. All right, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Zdenek. Please do get involved in the comments. It will help your English, and it will help my channel too, because we need some engagement here. You know what? I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. Anyway, enjoy the weekend matches, and I'll speak to you soon. Cheers. Bye.